This video is sponsored by World of Warships. More about them in just a moment. Hello everyone, this is your Daily Dose of Darkness. It's been reported in the United States of America that as of the end of 2021, there were over 93,000 active missing persons cases. To put this number into context, that's more than enough people to fully book out the Georgia Bulldogs Sanford Stadium. Or for football fans, we're talking enough people to fully book out Bournemouth's Vitality Stadium, Fulham's Craven Cottage, and Arsenal's Emirates Stadium. Combined, roughly 600,000 people are reported missing each year within the United States of America. On top of this, an average of 4,400 unidentified bodies will be found each year. And over the past 10 years, roughly 60% of people that went missing were adults compared to 40% of people being juveniles, and of these people, 52% of them were male, in contrast to 48% of the people going missing being female. And you might be asking, why do so many people go missing in the first place? Some people wander off and die where they can't be found. Some people decide to try and start their lives over again, getting a fresh new start and going missing to do so. And sometimes there are much more dark reasons, such as foul play and murder. The FBI estimate that within the United States of America, at any time there are somewhere between 25 and 50 active serial killers that are not yet behind bars. Experts estimated that back in 2021 in the USA, there were roughly 4,000 serial killers that were not in prison. This map was released of the states with the most victims, starting with the state of Georgia with 365 serial killer victims, and ending with a top 3 of Florida with 845 victims, Texas with 893, and California taking the top spot with 1,628. But of course, the USA is not the only place where serial killers reside. Over here in the UK, for instance, it's estimated that at any one moment there are between 2 and 9 active serial killers that are not yet in prison. But if you feel like the world of modern gaming is a bit of a prison, well then there's no better way to escape that than by downloading World of Warships, today's video sponsor. You see, World of Warships is a free-to-play naval shooter game available for the PC. Take to the seas in one of the many different and unique ship classes it has to offer, and bask in the vibrant and dynamic modern graphics you see before your very eyes. From being aboard a battleship during a violent storm to diving deep in a submarine, World of Warships releases new content every month, keeping your gameplay fresh and your experience one of a kind. So whether you're on the seas by yourself or in a division with your friends, there's always something new to explore. Oh yeah, and did I also mention that World of Warships is also available on other consoles? So whatever you're on, you can play. So if you've ever been interested, now is the time to install it. If you want to download World of Warships right now, you can do so by clicking the first link in the description below. And if you want to get ahead from the start, you can use code BRAVO to claim some exclusive rewards for free. Once again, I want to say a huge thank you to World of Warships for being the proud sponsor of today's video. But with that said, let's set sail to our next topic. And while we do that, let's take things back 500 years to 1521, when Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés landed in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, when he and his men witnessed a horribly morbid ceremony. You see, the Aztecs used to use human sacrifices a lot. It's been said that Hernán Cortés witnessed an Aztec priest slice open the chests of sacrificial victims, and his claims have since been heavily backed up by archaeological evidence. And it's thought that the Aztecs used human sacrifices because of religious reasons. You see, according to Aztec mythology, their god, whatever this is, required constant nourishment in the form of human blood to prevent the rise of darkness and the end of the world. But you have to ask, if the Aztec god was man-made, if he really isn't up in the sky, if he is not the true god, then who asked for human sacrifices to be made? It would have been another human that interpreted this, or maybe just had a lust for blood himself. Why would a person guess, or even blatantly say, knowing the consequences, that their god is blood hungry and demands human sacrifices, causing the deaths of many people? I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. But for as strange as the Aztecs' theories on human sacrifice were, these kind of concepts weren't exactly uncommon in history. This fascination in using the human body to satisfy your beliefs was also present in ancient Roman culture too. There was an old Roman author and philosopher known as Pliny the Elder who documented that the Roman populace was fascinated in blood transfusions. And this was because they believed that human blood could be used as some sort of magical elixir. Pliny described how after a strong gladiator would die in the Colosseum, there would be a rush of spectators who would run onto the battlefield to drink his blood, because they believed that this action of consuming the blood of mighty warriors would allow them to absorb their powers. They also believed that human blood could cure epilepsy. So if you were having a day out at the Colosseum and you forgot to buy a drink at the counter, well, you know, slurp up. But speaking of which, are you drinking anything right now? Perhaps you're at home and you've got a can of Coke next to you, or maybe you're at school and you're just drinking from a water bottle, or maybe, just maybe, you're having a lunch break at work and you're sipping some coffee from your mug. I'm sure that label might describe a few of you watching this very video at this very moment. And you poor unfortunate workers sipping a drink from your mug at work, you're not going to like what I have to say next. Because that mug that you're drinking out of, well, there's a highly likely chance that it is just riddled with germs. According to a study published in the Journal of Dairy, Food and Environmental Sanitation, they noted that 90% of office coffee mugs were coated in germs, and 20% of them, we're talking 1 in 5, had fecal matter detected on them. But if you're worried about this and want to wipe it down, I wouldn't be so hasty, because it's actually the sponges and washcloths that are doing this. These are apparently horribly unsanitary, so unless you have a fresh sponge in the pack to wipe your mug down, I'd say drink what you have and try not to think about it. Pray to a deity that you've got a clean mug. And based on my statistics, there will be a portion of you watching this video that do pray to a deity, regularly in fact. Maybe a few of you have even read the Bible, but did you know about an incredibly fascinating book called The Devil's Bible? Otherwise known as the Codex Gigas, this is a book of tremendous intrigue. This book is the largest medieval illuminated manuscript in the world, and is oftentimes referred to as the Devil's Bible because of its full-page portrait of Satan. It was created in the 13th century in a region located in the modern-day Czech Republic. It eventually wound up in the hands of the Swedes, however, and today is preserved in the National Library of Sweden located in Stockholm, which, if you're in the area, you can actually go to, because it's on display to the public. Now, there are so many fascinating features to the Codex Gigas, way too many for this video, so I'm going to link a couple of videos in the description for you to have a look at if you want to learn more. But its origin, or at least the folklore behind it, is the story I want to tell you. For you see, according to legend, this book was written by none other than a monk. A monk who is said to have broken his vows and was sentenced to death. In order to avoid this harsh penalty, he promised to create, in one night, a book to glorify the monastery forever, including all human knowledge. But approaching midnight, and the monk was certain that he would not be able to finish this book. And so he prayed, not to God, but to Lucifer instead. He asked the devil to help him finish this book in exchange for his soul. The devil would oblige, and as a token of his appreciation, the monk drew the devil's picture within it. And while you might doubt that something like this ever happened, allow me to remind you that the Codex Gigas is 92 centimeters long, 50 centimeters wide, and 22 centimeters thick, weighing almost 75 kilograms or 165 pounds. A book of this size should have taken over 20 years to write, but based on the fact that there was no sign of aging or disease on the part of the writer, many people believe that it was written in a very short amount of time. Perhaps a hand from the supernatural doesn't sound so out of the question now. And perhaps nor does the theory of spontaneous human combustion, a topic proposed by many of you. The idea is that it's possible for a human being to be going about their normal day when suddenly they burst into flames. The most famous of these cases is Mary Reeser, who in 1951 mysteriously died at the age of 67. She was found deceased in the early hours of the morning on July 2nd after her landlady had reportedly smelled smoke inside her apartment. When she attempted to enter it, the doorknob was much too hot to use. The emergency services were called, and it was discovered that Mary Reeser had been almost entirely cremated. Her remains were almost entirely ashes except for her left foot, which was bizarrely still intact. Both her backbone and skull remained, but her skull was much smaller than how large it should have been. It had shrunk. On top of this, almost everything around her hadn't been damaged by the fire, even though it should have. It was almost like the fire, for the most part, was entirely on her
and her alone. On top of this, for a body to burn as severely as hers, it would have had to be at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or just over 1,600 degrees Celsius, for at least 3 hours. And for this reason, many people have come to the conclusion that Mary spontaneously burst into flames. And interestingly, this is not the first time that a cause of death being spontaneous combustion has been claimed. Over the past 300 years, there have reportedly been 200 people whose reported cause of death was claimed to be spontaneous human combustion, if it indeed exists. And on the topic of fire, let's talk about the backfire effect, a subtype of the confirmation bias. The concept is that when a person is confronted with concrete evidence that challenges a strongly held belief, it oftentimes causes them to actually strengthen their support of that stance, whatever it is. This means that many humans, including the ones watching this video, will live in a false reality throughout their lives because they're too afraid to let new facts change their way of thinking, even if those facts have been scientifically, irrefutably proven. With this concept being most applicable to politics especially. At our core, us humans are just highly intelligent animals, but from time to time, we can be real dummies. You know dummies, right? These big ventriloquist puppets? Well, there's a museum in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky called the Vent Haven Museum, which houses an absolute ton of these creepy guys. If you've got puppophobia, you might want to look away right now because this is some footage of the place. Many people believe that the place is haunted, whereas others just find it spine-chilling and eerie. Creepy, right? I mean, when I was a child, I was always more of a teddy bear kind of guy than puppets, but I'm sure you'll agree that in real life, bears are a lot scarier than the teddies that we used to have when we were children. Don't be fooled by cutesy videos on the internet, polar bears are absolute beasts. And while their attacks on humans are rare, with only roughly 20 human fatalities in the past 150 years at the hands of polar bears, they are one of the few animals that would actively hunt humans if they can pick up their scent. And if you ever had the displeasure of seeing one, well, the chances are that it's already likely seen you, and it will likely be one of the last things that you ever see. If you were out alone, stranded in the Arctic with very limited food, and if somehow, in an absolute miracle, you were able to kill an attacking polar bear, or were able to find one dead that hasn't been scavenged yet, just make sure not to eat its liver, because you will die. A polar bear's liver has so much vitamin A that it's actually toxic for humans. Similarly, the golden poison frog, you'll be surprised, has a lot of poison in it, enough to kill 10 fully grown men. Now, fortunately for most of you, you'll likely never get to see a golden poison frog, as its species status has sadly been declared as endangered. And it also lives in the Chaco rainforest in Colombia. But for this creature's toxins to kill you, you don't even need to eat it. The frog's toxin coats its skin, so even if you were to touch this small yellow amphibian, you could very well die. So if for some reason you're out in the Chaco rainforest in Colombia, watch your step. And in this point in the video, I want to turn our attention to Reddit. The following few are just a handful of some fast facts and stories that I saw on a Reddit thread and have since researched. So buckle up, here we go. If given the opportunity, butterflies will happily drink blood. This is because they search for nutrients in moist substances, usually mud or rotting plants. But sometimes, even if it's rare, they will drink blood. Also having a famous taste for blood is sharks. But while humans are very scared of them, it's well known that they don't actually cause many deaths. Apparently, you are 10 times more likely to be bitten by a New Yorker than a shark, which if anything is a bit lower than what I would have predicted. This chart right here shows that how back in the 80s, there were way more human on human bite attacks than shark on human bite attacks. I hope these human bite attacks aren't all from New York, but in that case, it would be way more than 10 times. But yeah, stay safe, New Yorkers. And while you're in the USA, if you happen to die via murder, there is a 1 in 3 chance that the police will never find the person that killed you. Apparently, squirrels carry almost all of the same diseases as rats do, but we don't care just because they look a lot cuter. This is a fish with human-looking teeth. I don't really have a story to say about it, it just looks kind of off. It's called the sheephead fish, and these guys are typically found in coastal waters around the western Atlantic. I mean, his teeth are still a lot nicer than half the people I pass on the street, let's just get that straight, but still, it's very weird. On another topic, it's thought that ants outnumber humans 1 million to 1. So if for whatever reason they decided that humans were their enemies, each man, woman, and child on Earth would have to take on 1 million ants each. And on the topic of animals, pigs will eat basically everything, including humans. If you've seen Guy Ritchie's 2000 crime film Snatch, you'll know what I mean. Back in 2019, it's thought that a Russian woman was eaten by her farm pigs after she passed out while feeding them. At that point, she hadn't died or anything, she was just passed out. But they decided to eat her right then and there. Also, the USA somehow lost 6 nukes that it never found, so have fun sleeping tonight. Back to my own personal list, a group that might find it quite difficult to sleep tonight is the homeless. But did you know that American homelessness specifically would be a lot easier to fix than many people believe? At least on paper. While of course this might be a bit of an oversimplification of a wider social issue, in terms of pure statistics, there is an estimated 500,000 people living on the streets of the USA. In contrast, there is roughly an estimated 17 million homes that are completely uninhabited in the country. That means that if we were to use only 3% of those uninhabited homes, each homeless person in the country would be able to have a house for themselves. Though while it's saddening to see our brothers and sisters out on the streets, if you have brothers and sisters of your own, let me drop a little thought on you, because dark times are ahead. This is a short idea, but a chilling one nonetheless. Say that you have 4 siblings and each of you get on with each other. Let's say that you're all in good health. You all go to the gym every now and then, you all eat good food, you have no health risks in your everyday lives. Well then, in that case, hypothetically, there is a 20% chance that you attend the funeral of each of your siblings. But there's also a 20% chance that you attend the funeral of none of them. If one of you were to die though, it could be because of cardiac arrest. This happens to about 1,000 people in the USA every single day. But while the data varies, it's said that if you have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital setting, performing CPR on a person who's experiencing a cardiac arrest will only succeed in saving their lives between 7 and 10% of the time. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't at least try it though, those odds are much better than if you don't do anything at all. But still, outside of a hospital setting, a 7 to 10% chance is the best that we've got. And just remember that when you do die, there will come a day where nobody remembers you and your entire existence will be forgotten about forever. If you're lucky, it might not happen for a long time. If you're unlucky, it might happen then and there on the spot. That is the end of this video. Hopefully I made your day just a little darker, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Later!